I have an interest, right? So 25% would be interested in bitter melon. More than likely is if you tell me how to use it, if you can show me what to do with it. Down here, chili peppers. Chili peppers. Anybody use chili peppers? Okay. Roughly 30 to 50% of the people we surveyed are heavy users of chili pepper. Right, so that's cross-cultural with respect to cross ethnicities with respect to who are using these products. So you have other things here. I put in colored bell pepper. You have somewhat heavy use. The cucumber, you have not as heavy use with a heavy use, but they're generally in the somewhat group. What is this? That's curly green beans, right? Again, you have something. Those are traditional. You see them everywhere. You see heavy use. So our thing is, we have certain things that you expect. Green beans, tomatoes, potatoes are heavy used or used a lot, but there's this middle ground here that are never but interested that we can pick off. I say pick off being if we get it introduced to them, that could be a growing segment to get things to increase sales of these new products. Right. So again, it's roughly the same thing. That shows, use-wise, right? Green bell pepper, habanero pepper, right? We see a lot of habanero pepper use, right? People want to spice their food up, so we see habanero pepper use, and we see, that there's a lot of people that are moving through and are using these products that are that have never seen it before but may want to use it. So this was what drives purchasing. So we did a survey and we asked, did run an experiment to try to understand what is driving people's decision to buy different products. And what we see is that, type of product, the price, and production region generally come important. I say production region for one simple fact. Production region. So we did this for Canada. What we saw was that, the Canadian consumer and the U.S. consumer generally like U.S. and Canadian product. African Caribbean, they also like things coming from Africa and the Caribbean. So when we think about local and talk about local with these groups, local to them may be something that's coming from their home country. Same thing we saw for Asian with respect to South Asia came up as something that they gave a validation to the South Asian label as something they might prefer or might like. So it's simply, when we talk about local, you got to think about different cultures, what they're thinking about. There may be that sort of home country bias of giving value to that label. With respect to what's happening with ethnic heritage, what people are looking for differs. External appearance matter to Canadian consumers. Ideal size for U.S. consumers. The African Caribbean was external appearance and firmness fits my needs. Right? So not only what they're getting, but how you're delivering it to them differs by different groups. And we can't just simply say, hey, we're going to go about and do things a certain way. It's our way or the highway. I'm getting a message that like 10 minutes or so we'll go through this. Values of labels when purchasing. We've already established locally grown means different things to different people. But these different groups, roughly value them the same. We don't see huge differences here of how they say these things matter in their purchase decision. There's things, roughly people, it's not the message matters. It just means what that individual message you put in that that matters. So that sort of message within the message is what's really differs. Right? So what is local? If I ask what's local, what is local? Is there a federal definition of local? Yes. The federal definition of local is US state 400 miles. Or it's within the state can pick their own definition. So with that, varies by state. Right? I worked in Connecticut. I was with the Commissioner of Agriculture for the state of Connecticut. He was wandering around and one of the grocery stores, he found some eggs. They said, Connecticut grown in Connecticut. On the other side it said, produced in Amish country. Anybody know what Amish country is? It's not Connecticut. So what he did was the next day he had these people come in and this company come in and explain just how that their product fit within the definition of the state mandated local, which was within the state or 10 miles outside the state. Right? So then we have retailer definitions as well for what local is. So we have these varying different of boundaries, and they vary. If I asked each one of you what local is, I'd get a bunch of different answers. But what do we mean? The characteristics of how these characteristics local of different things, what you associate with local, how do they impact your decision? So freshness. Most people think freshness is very important part of local. Safe to eat, right? But other things, some people think about open space preservation. Generally, we see a little bit of discord here on different groups. Preserve farming for future generations. We start seeing a little bit of stuff that sort of separates us out with respect to these different groups. But generally, we market things on freshness, safety, those type of grounds, even though this message matters to some people. Supports the local economy. Again, we see a little bit of difference in that, but by and large, that's roughly the same. If we move on, characteristics local, this is more production level, right? Decreased miles of transport. We see, that's generally accepted. We see Hispanics dipped on that a little bit comparatively, but by and large, we see roughly people getting it right. But we have groups that, all groups say that local is no natural pesticide or no synthetic pesticide used on commodities. Does that sound familiar? What does that sound like? Organic, right? And we had a large group, or I say large, 5, 10, 20% saying that local is a marketing gimmick. So as you start, and that's across these different groups, so as we start marketing things, we got to realize these are people that have concerns about these messages. Barriers to purchasing local, higher prices was cited by most groups as being a barrier to actually purchasing local, which is interesting because we continuously say we need to charge higher prices. Well, there's a large group out there that says, look, I don't buy more because the prices are high. And we have a group that roughly 10 to 20% saying quality is an issue of why they don't buy more local. Perception of organic differences. Moving organic, again, we see very much the same thing with respect to sort of parity across a lot of these different, how consumers sort of value them and how they sort of associate them with organic. So we see the same message. People have roughly this, across different groups, have the same views with respect to how they influence their decision to buy. But we see some differences on production characteristics, right? So we had no synthetic pesticide use. By and large, that the Caucasian consumer and Asian were right compared to African American and Hispanic comparatively. So we see other things here, non-GMO. We see across the board, most people did not associate non-GMO with organic, even though non-GMO is to be organic, you can't be GMO. We see higher price comes up again. Again, we see a large number saying that organic is a marketing gimmick, right? So we see this. So if you assume one group is going to be more likely to be in tune with something, you need to better sort of realize that across groups that we're going to see differences show up with respect to what they think, but the differences aren't that large. So GMO, real quick. GMO. Generally, if I asked most of you what a GMO was, you would not know. That's a definition. That's a Institute for Responsible Technology gives a definition of GMOs being a laboratory process where genes from a DNA of one species are put into another one. It's relatively new technology. So, what kind of crops are being GMO? Corn, soybean, cotton, tomato. So there are some things out there that are moving through the pipeline with respect to affect the produce industry and how it will be that it will be GMO or not. I say these for one reason. Think GMOs are safe. Roughly, we see the large portion say they're not sure if GMOs are safe or not. With a large group saying no and a small group saying yes. So there's a large group out there that really have no idea what it is. Should it be labeled? But we're quite confident that we don't know what it is, but it should be labeled. Right? Across groups, by and large, we see that GMOs should be labeled. Your knowledge of GMO, again, what interesting here, this is an interesting question we asked. Your knowledge of GMO generally felt not real knowledgeable out of 100 points, not real knowledgeable, but if you look across, they felt knowledgeable than most people in their state. So they felt more knowledgeable than other people in their state, and the U.S. population quite a bit, but not as knowledgeable as scientists or the U.S. government. Right? So there's groups out there that, how they look, and this is just consistent across groups. GMO characteristics. And I'm winding down, I promise. Canadian DNA, most people missed it. Only a third of people knew that's sort of what it is. And we have, groups saying, increased pesticide use. And that's sort of consistent across goods. We think of GMOs there to decrease pesticide use and other things. Which products, I thought this was fascinating, which products could have a GMO ingredient, right? What do we see? By and large, fruit and vegetables, they could have a GMO, even though most of these have no GMO with respect to fresh. They're not going to have a GMO in it. Frosted Flakes, salsa, potato chips, Coca-Cola, all these things score really, really low, right? So those processed foods that more than likely, the estimate I saw that online was like 75 to 80% of have some sort of GMO in it, especially processed. We don't think they could have it in it, but fresh, that we're getting they are things that we're relating to having a GMO. So that being said, putting it all together, we've got to be aware of product parameters of what we're doing. What size do we do? Not only what product, but what size. And new ways to do things. Right? I mean, what kind of products do we bring in? I'm not sure if this comes up. Does it come up? Yeah, there. So new ways to do things. Right? Okra chips. Right? If you want to eat okra on the go, this company's doing little chips, basically dehydrated okra chips you can eat, or carrot slices. Right? So how are we now getting these into the lives of different types of consumers and getting them out there that people will be more apt to eat them or try them? And what's the next big thing? So we had kale, we've got quinoa, and sweet potatoes. There have been things that have really come on the market, really been out there and really exploded. What's next? Right? What are we trying to get out there for as an industry to move forward? Finally, some labelings proceed the same, but it does vary. So we've got to realize that local and things like that, they make a difference. The question, though, is what exactly are you meaning by local? So if you put local, it may not mean the same thing as it does from one side of the room to the next. Right? So we've got to understand what these different groups are thinking and try to address our messaging and how we're doing about talking about things in a way that these groups will now sort of respond to them. And so I'm getting a quit talking sign. Questions?
Valuable information, Professor Campbell. Thank you so much. Questions?
If you want the presentation, I'll be more than happy to send it to you. Just let me know. Because I know I went fast because I got the stop talking sign or just start ending quickly. So, questions? Anybody?
We do have time for questions.
On your survey question, you asked people's perception of GMO. Did you give them just those categories to answer on? Was that open-ended
which
question?
Which one? The food one?
Yes. Yeah, just towards the end here. Right before you asked the list of products that they knew were GMO.
So GMOs, we had this one thing. So all these were, do you think it's safe, or just do you think it's safe? There was no product. And so then there was knowledge.
There was watermelon. There was
the
frosted.
Yeah. So no, we just did a random list. It was just
you provided the list.
Yes.
It wasn't open-ended.
Yes.
Okay. And the question before that, where you asked them what GMO means, perception of differences, did you give them those categories?
Yes.
Or is that okay?
Yes. And the reason why is we're really interested on these things, on what we sort of think it means, like DNA, to addressing some of these, assessing how much are we generally ask people in a lot of surveys, tell me, like, is it good for the local community, for local? Is it those types of things? But we're really interested in the production aspects of it. How many people are getting it right? And we're seeing that people, they don't know. They don't know about local. Yes. And you see that even the people who say they're really knowledgeable, generally the ones who miss it the most. Sorry, go ahead. I interrupted.
That's it. Thank you.
Other questions?
I was not aware that local was now a federal definition. How long ago did they create that definition of the 400 miles?
I can get you the statute. It was a year or two ago when they came out.
It's fairly recent then.
Yes.
Another question, I don't know if you've researched this, on country of origin. We had in the mid-2000s, produce, meat, and seafood were all required to have country of origin. About 2 years ago, meat dropped that under pressure. Are you aware of any research? Has there been any change in behavior in the purchase of meat products now that they no longer know the origin?
Yes, I don't know. I can probably direct you to somebody who may know better, but I have no idea.
One last question? Anybody? Well, with that, let's show our appreciation for Dr. Campbell.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you very much.